Hey team, Chris Lee here. I'm here with my good friend Dan Sepulveda, and I'm super excited because this is part two of our talks with one another. And today we're going to talk about some very important subjects regarding forward thinking with backwards planning. Also, we're going to talk about some fun acronyms that if you've been in the military in any branch for more than a day, you've heard over and over again, and then how it applies to your life outside of the military, and then the importance of leadership and how it affects our lives day to day, and how it continues to shape our lives day to day. But once again, I'd like to introduce Dan,
Cool.
the principal broker for Real here on the beautiful island of Oahu and the Hawaiian Islands. And yeah.
Yes, sir. So I appreciate it. Again, Dan Sepulveda, principal broker, Real Broker LLC here on the island, and the other islands actually. We stretch across to, Big Island, Maui, and Kauai. So if you ever need help out that way. But yeah, prior Navy, Navy corpsman, spent some time with the Marines, spent some time on the, as we call the blue side here in Hawaii. Did a little bit of time in the reserves and took the leap into real estate in 2017, and here we are.
That's awesome. And just recently, I made the transition from the Army over to being a mortgage lender here at Loan Depot, Hawaii, and also with the educational background of the Veterans Education Source and the Veterans Mortgage Source. Very excited because of the platforms we can do for active duty and for veterans all across this great country. But today we're going to talk about something that's very important to us, and it should be systemic for the rest of your life. It's that forward thinking with backwards planning embedded into that type of thinking. And there's so many things that pop up in my head when you brought up that great topic. It's like, hey, we're always planning for the next movement.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we're preparing ourselves to initiate movement. That means we got to be there 15 minutes early. We got to hurry up and wait,
Right.
because you don't know when you're going to SP
Right.
from that position. So it's pretty neat knowing that, if you're thinking forward and then knowing what it takes before SP, that's a great way to plan your life, especially with something like as important as getting out of the Army or getting out of the military, getting out, receiving your benefits, buying a home, creating generational wealth.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think again in the military, I mean, let's toss around one of the first acronyms that come to mind, right? AAR, right? What's AAR? Your after action report review, and what does that really mean? So it means taking a look at what just happened, right? Taking a look at the event that just occurred, whether it's say on the far terrible end of the spectrum, a casualty or something like that downrange, or on the garrison side of the equation, maybe just 10, 12, 15 mile ruck, in garrison here in Hawaii or in 29 Palms. But planning the next move by looking at things that had already happened in the past. And unfortunately, I think, even though that AAR is embedded into the military, I think it's often truly forgotten, right? Or often maybe trumped by your good idea fairies, right? I don't know if the Army's all big into good idea fairies, but
They're flying everywhere.
we had our fair share in the Navy and Marine Corps. And sometimes those good idea fairies, they fail to take into consideration that backwards planning, right? What went well, what did not go well, what was unnecessary. Like, hey, and that's so important too, is like, let's clear up some of the noise, some of the minutia, some of the unnecessary, Let's really evaluate how many times because I said so really, really happened, right? Because that's probably unnecessary noise, not contributing to the end result. And I mean, could have a lot of detrimental results, right? Could be decreased morale, could be, somebody coming to work with marital problems because, they took that home, so it's just so important to like I said, just always looking backwards to plan that next move.
I can't agree with you more, Dan. And then, and it's so crazy too, because there's terabytes of data of all these AAR comments from large-scale operations to something as small as a 10-mile ruck, or a family readiness group function that did okay, or something like that. And there's data upon data, stacks of it, like in the servers of the Navy, Army, Marine Corps, wherever.
Sure.
And just like taking up space, and all this data, all this useful information, all these trials, tribulations, failures, and successes are just there, but no one's reading them.
Yeah.
I say the same exact thing for us on the line. Think about how many millions of dollars the company Right in the Rain has made off just torn sheets of scribble that leaders write down. All right, guys, what went good? What went bad? What can we do better? What should we keep? All right, writing it down in their notebook, sliding it in their shoulder pocket, and then it being washed in the next load of laundry.
Yep, 100%. So it's funny because that Right in the Rain, that notebook, I mean, it is literally a book of lessons, right? It's this book of lessons, and the word that's supposed to trail lessons is learned.
Yeah, exactly.
But in all reality, it's lessons lost.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you said, it just gets thrown into the wash, or just like, oh, I'm out of sheets, so on to the next, even though that's gold.
Oh yeah. And like and it's crazy too, because in any type of like tactical operation, you're looking for sensitive information. You're looking for, when you do things like you're on the objective and you've cleared the objective, and then there's always this very, very important task of conducting sensitive site exploitation, or SSE. And it's like, hey, you're checking on your men and equipment, everything's good, but then you're exploiting everything that objective had, whether it be information, whether it be identification of personnel, whether it be like high value targets or high value information.
Right.
And then like the thing we're about to talk about, none of this is like sensitive. It's just it's like we haven't recreated the wheel. There's a like very step-by-step process to be successful while you're serving, when you get out of the military. There's a very like deliberate and awesome success plan, but people just aren't asking the right questions to the right people, because there's literature about it out there, right? Right. But like, where do you find all this stuff? Like, who do you talk to? Right. And I feel like it's gonna bring back to it's gonna segue into our next topic discussion, which is about leadership. It's like we're trying to go out there and let everyone know we have these nuggets of knowledge. It's not special to us. Right. It's not a secret. It's like, I'm not trying to ask you, hey, like, put in your credit card information for the 10 top ways to learn about learn about the benefits of the VA. No, like we're giving you free chicken. Like all this terminology that we've heard over and over again. And like, it is free chicken. It's just like, you have this capability, you have this amazing benefit, and then are you going to take advantage of it, or are you going to keep it in your shoulder pocket and get it washed away?
So let's dissect it a little further. So I think two ways to look at this. One, talking about the transition, right? I think the transition, there's not enough information about the transition. Not enough, right? Because I think the vast majority rely on your TAPS class or your transition assistance program, whatever it may be called. Every branch has its version, but that's like almost the end all be all, right? When the reality is that the better TAPS is talking with somebody, talking with a person who didn't skip a beat, went right into their next job after the military. So I think it's important to talk about that, and then no shame, but also a little bit of forward thinking and that backwards planning with something that can again provide that generational wealth, which is our industry of real estate, which I'm sure, much like myself, it kind of changed your life.
Oh yeah. Most of us don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved away uh, ready to buy that first property,
Right.
like for a conventional mortgage. For a veteran, for an active duty service member, they have an amazing ability to buy a home immediately, just because they served.
Right.
And I wish I could give you more. I wish the government, I wish there were more benefits, right?
Right.
But this is a fantastic one just because you don't have to put anything down. The way the housing market is and the way the housing market has been historically, it's one of those things where you have this amazing opportunity to invest into something with no money down and watch it grow.
Right.
And literally living in your investment.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have a savings plan, when you have a 401k, when you have an investment that's with the stock market or with crypto or with whatever is not tangible. You can't
Right.
see it. You physically can't touch it
Right.
because it's there and you can cash it out later.
Right.
But with a home, you can improve on it. You can live in it. You can create memories in it and then give it to your children later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
something physically tangible that's only going to continue to get value
Mm-hmm.
because you've put value into it
Right.
and you've utilized it.
Right.
What an amazing concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like living inside your piggy bank
Yeah.
and then watching that piggy bank get bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the stats are there. I mean, those who own. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend to spit out numbers right now, but it's without a doubt those who own real estate, those who have invested in themselves, are every single time has a greater net worth than somebody who's taking that path of least resistance, like that rental, right? There's nothing wrong with renting so long as you're evaluating the big picture, right? But again, give that big picture some thought. Have that forward thinking, like what does it take to get to the point of home ownership, and just break it down that step in front of you.
Yeah. There's absolutely no shame in renting.
Right.
As long as you have the option.
Yeah.
Like if you don't give yourself the option and just make the decision without weighing the other option, which can greatly benefit you and your family, then you have become narrow-minded. You have become one-dimensional. You have not humiliated yourself to go out there and learn. As leaders, we should always
Right.
learn and want to create knowledge amongst the formation, amongst anyone and everyone that is willing to listen to us. Another like cool little saying, I guess, or something that I always kind of kept close to me in terms of forward thinking, backwards planning, is always setting the conditions. Like, have I set the conditions for the next objective, for the next movement, for the next task?
Right.
If you're not setting the conditions, what are you doing, right? So, hey, I'm spending money like a jerk, and I'm just constantly spending money. I have wasting money on bikes, cars, stuff, and not doing anything to save. With a home, it is literally a forced savings plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That condition has been set,
Yeah.
and it is setting you up for something bigger later. So it's something that you don't have to think about for those who don't have control.
Yeah.
A mortgage is something that you just can't just get rid of it.
Right. Right.
Right. But it's one of those things where you have a great opportunity because you have options. Like when you're renting, rent only goes up. Like I've never seen a landlord cut rent. Right.
Yeah. No. As soon as my tenant moves out, I'm bumping it up.
Yeah. And you can't control it.
Right.
You just happen to be a nice landlord.
Yeah.
But like every 6 months, landlord could be like,
Yeah,
hey, the
they can
market,
Mhm.
Electricity, power,
Yeah.
water's gotten more expensive. so I'm
Inflation.
increasing-
You see the news.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to increase this because of inflation.
Right.
Using generic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to pay this increase in rate. All right, then you can go find another place to live.
Right.
You're evicted.
Right.
Oh. When you're a homeowner, you have those options of selling your home, refinancing your home, like leasing your home to another service member who is getting ready for that next big purchase. It's one of those things where, as a leader, like, yeah, you appreciate the renter, you appreciate, like, you're providing them a nice place to stay, and then, like, hey, I know it behooves you because you want to educate them on the next step, which is home ownership. And then always continually setting those conditions for success.
So let's make it real. About as real as it can be, but a hypothetical situation where we have a PCSing sailor coming from San Diego, E6, we'll say single, PCSing in June. So it's January right now. Going to be here in June. Going to be here, say March, June. Let's just go June. And we get the call. Like, hey, see that you're in real estate. I really enjoyed my time serving with you over in Hawaii. It's awesome that you're in here because it's always been an interest. Getting into real estate's always been an interest of mine. Dude, I got to be honest, man. I have zero clue where to begin. So that sailor's forward thinking is home ownership, right? Yeah. Now, with that backwards planning, where do we begin?
Oh, yeah. So the greatest thing about backwards planning is identifying what those gates look like in time and space, right? So he knows how much time he has. That's 6 months to prepare. He knows that if there's any obstacles in that way from now until then, he can overcome them or at least have a plan of action to overcome them. Best benefit of backwards planning. Identifying that problem way ahead of time and creating solutions so that the ultimate goal is achieved, home ownership. So starting from the beginning, he's already initiated contact. Right? He's made contact with the two professionals that he can trust just based on the knowledge, the subject matter expertise, understanding what the market is because we're physically here. And then, okay, what do I do? From there, we're going to give him a list of things he needs to do. It's essentially a checklist. And for any leader, it's just PCCs, PCIs. And then with that, he understands, all right, I need to hit these gates. And then the first thing you need to know is before you go shopping, do you go shopping without your wallet?
Right.
Yeah. So you gotta know how much.
Yep.
You have to know how much you can afford. You have to know what your budget is. So, like typically, E6 single, I already know what his base pay is, what his BAH rate is, like exactly all the special monies he's getting, whether it be cost of living adjustment, whether it be BAS, all these great things. And depending on what his job is, he may be getting extra pay.
Sure.
So understanding like his income, easy. It's literally printed on mypay.dfast.
Yeah.
Now I gotta go into his liabilities. Hey, one of the most anxiety-driven things to talk about is finances. And it's like, but by law, I'm required to go through that list of liabilities with you. It's like, hey, this is what you're paying. Are you sure? Do you know that you're paying this? Sometimes I get like, oh, I did not know I was still paying that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's amazing. With the VA, there are certain things that are counted against you less than with conventional. One being student loans. So yeah, you get a smaller rate. Even if your student loans are in deferment or forbearance, you get a lesser hit on your liabilities with student loans if you're doing a VA loan. It's pretty neat. So typically with the conventional loan, it's 1% of the loan amount is factored into your monthly liabilities versus with your VA, it's divided by 12 for 12 months and then at a rate of 5%.
Okay.
It ends up much smaller than 1%.
Wow, didn't know that.
It's a big benefit. It's really neat. Just because the simple fact that a giant liability like hundreds of thousands of dollars or the student debt can just be incremental at that point. Not going too far off tangent, understanding what those liabilities are, and then, okay, if you have any assets, hey, what's your credit score? And then, boom, that creates this profile, that picture of what your financial budget can be and will be.
Right.
Some people like to max it out and maximize their buying potential. Some people like to stay in a budget.
Yeah.
Some people like to stay within that BH range. And we'll let you know what that is. Once I have that budget, I'm then taking that football and giving it back to you, Dan.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this E6 Marine can afford $3,500 a month. What can you help him buy? With $3,500 a month at X interest rate, that can buy him a $600,000 home. Let's go find it for him.
Yeah.
Way ahead of time, you can already start shopping.
Right.
You can find the place that you know you want to live. If he's going to be on Marine Corps Base Hawaii or Marine Corps Base Kaneohe Bay, then hey, Kaneohe looks like a great place to live,
Yeah.
right? There's probably homes within that price range. So let's look there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the hard part's done now. Like, what else can we help you with? Oh, you've been in 29 Palms in San Diego the whole time, and you've just been moving back and forth. This is their first big PCS move.
Yeah.
Well, you got some household goods to move. You got some vehicles to move. You got some. You have a dog. You have guns.
Maybe a pet. Yeah.
Yeah,
The guns.
you got all this stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna help you.
Yeah.
PCS. Oh, your unit didn't give you a PCS guide?
Yeah.
Well, we got a PCS guide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We got you.
yeah, so we'll go through that laundry list of stuff, and then understand that we're not just here to help you buy a home. We're here to make sure that your transition,
Right.
whether it be from one duty station to another, or whether it be from military life into civilian life, is a good one.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and like you said, I think it's just that backwards planning piece that's always missed and just taken for granted. But kind of going back to that, yeah, I mean, when you're evaluating those liabilities and everything, and determining that budget, I mean, that's huge. And, a certain degree of, you need that transparency from each and every, veteran military member that we serve, that, yeah, hey, I understand that these debts, these liabilities may feel a little sensitive, but we want you to know, man, we've been there. We've been there. We bought the vehicle. We bought the Camaro with the 20% interest rate outside the gate.
Tacoma.
We've been down that path, so we get it. We know it's a reality, but the most important step is that identification, right? And that's all we're trying to do. Is we're trying to identify the problems, the hurdles, the challenges that we foresee and anticipate, and just addressing those in the front.
Yeah.
Right?
Our job is not to judge you.
Yeah, there's no judgment.
We've literally worn the same boots.
Yeah, exactly.
There's literally no judgment. I've probably done worse things.
Yeah.
And stupider things. Making that transition, it's fun because I get to look back and be like, man, Sergeant Lee was an idiot.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Lee was a big old idiot. Captain Lee, he was pretty smart. It's like,
yeah.
just being like, oh, yeah. Because, like, the more people you're in charge of, the more you can let them know of your failed lessons. I feel like life lessons like that are the best AAR comments, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you try to formalize it and, like, make it into, like, this presentation and this actual after-action report.
Just be real.
Yeah, just be real. Just be real. Yeah. Mylan to Chris, yeah. But, no, I love that because we've taken that full circle of, hey, we did a lot of things wrong when we were both serving. We missed a lot of opportunities, and we don't want you to miss the next opportunity.
Right.
Whatever that is and can be.
Yeah. So I think, that's a good launching point, actually. So I truly believe that amidst all the madness right now, the chaos, the inflation, the war in Ukraine, just all the madness that's occurring around us at this given moment, I'm optimistic of our nation. I still think America is the greatest nation in the world. And all I see is opportunity, right? The stock market's down 20+%. Home values are changing. And again, I'm still looking for the opportunity. So planning ahead, again, that forward thinking with backwards planning. So if I come to you as an interested buyer and I'm just like, dude, I'm going to wait, man. This has 2008 written all over it. This has bubble written all over it. This has, housing market crash written all over it. Anybody who's purchasing right now is stupid. What do you got to say to somebody like that?
I feel like you can't compare something that happened 14 years ago to now because of the rules, regulations, the amounts of involvement, and how just different the world is from now and how it was back then. There were no regulations against lending. Realtors, and like, you can have a heartbeat. You didn't even need a high school diploma to have a realtor's license. you didn't need to have a soul to be a mortgage lender.
Yeah.
Like, it was nuts. Especially back then, there was literally things called subprime lending, where, oh my gosh, you have a heartbeat, you can get a loan. Oh, there's no way you're going to pay this back? I don't care.
Yeah.
Here's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, you can't speak English?
Oh.
That's all right. Just sign here.
Here's this product that we're never going to use again.
Right.
But because of you, it's fine.
Right.
All I need is a social security number, and I'm good. And then people were borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars per person, and then billions of dollars, countrywide. And then all that money, like, it's going to be a very short fuse. And that was in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And then in 2007, when the market crashed, and then in 2008, when everyone felt the residual effects of it, it was absolutely wild because they were unqualified.
Yep.
You would never put a person in a position like that to succeed because there's too many steps. Like, you wouldn't put an average person on, the 10-meter high dive in the Olympics.
Right.
Like, their body can't handle that sudden crash into the pool. They're not trained for it. They don't have the knowledge for it. Their bodies aren't conditioned for it. The same exact thing for buying a home. Just because, you have a social security number and a pen doesn't mean that you deserve to buy this home.
Sure.
And they were being predatory. Realtors and lenders were being predatory with who they were signing up. They were just, oh yeah, people are borrowing money. That's fine.
Right.
I'm getting my commission. And it's extremely terrible the way to think of how people were just like identifying these targets.
Yeah.
They weren't people at that point. They were targets.
Yeah.
And groups of targets.
Right.
And then so many rules and regulations were set in. It literally stopped subprime lending. Literally, you can't borrow money if your credit score is below a certain point. You have to have some type of assets. You have to have a steady job. You have to have proof of income. You have to have proof of assets, proof and verification of your liabilities. There's too many things that have to be layered on to make sure that you're a good borrower.
Yep. One thing that I learned that I thought was kind of fascinating, and it makes perfect sense in my younger, I guess, more amateur days of real estate, being a realtor. Everybody was just like, oh, I'm sending the CD out today. I'm just like, cool, but when signing? Are we signing today? And I didn't understand that concept of what the closing disclosure was, right? And that closing disclosure, again, with that backwards planning, that lessons learned, that right in the rain, but we didn't put it in the wash. We kept it and we learned from it. That closing disclosure was created and to be sat on, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your lane, but to be sat on so that for 3 days, so that the buyer actually sits there, looks at it again. I mean, 72 hours of like, hey, this is what I'm committing my life to, right? This is what I'm committing my future to. And like you said, as a realtor, I was just like, why is it taking so long? Why are we not heading towards the signing table? And then when I understand the concept, when I took history into the equation again, I'm just like, oh, this makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
Right?
And like that right of rescission, and is a great forcing function.
Yeah.
To make sure that everything, all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, and working with us is a lot different because every step of the way they're going to understand where their money's going. They're going to understand why these title fees are X amount. They're going to understand what the interest rate was and is, and if it had to be changed for whatever reason. They're going to understand what it meant to be locked into an interest rate. They're going to understand what it meant that, hey, all these other functions, appraisals, inspections, all these things have happened from that 30-day period of when you signed a purchase contract till we closed, because it was to protect the investment that you're making. All these things, all these
and to protect you, and to
exactly.
protect you as the consumer.
Protect me as a lender, protect us as real estate professionals, and to protect the consumer of the investment that they're making.
Yep.
because it's their money that's on the line. It's their income. It's their it's their livelihood that's on the line. If this is a bad deal,
Right.
We wouldn't do that for a bad deal.
Yeah.
There are products out there that yes, you can buy a dilapidated property in terms of fixing it up. You're not going to get that with a VA.
Right.
So with a VA loan, it's like this is going to be your primary residence. This is going to be the home that you live in and create memories in, whether it be 3 years while you're stationed here, or whether it be for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful sentiment, knowing that there's so many checks and balances for this.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that they're actually effective checks and balances, right? Checks and balances are supposed to exist in our government. They're supposed to exist in the military. Supposed to exist in chain of commands, right? Yeah. But it is comforting to know that these checks and balances are actually effective. And then the added layer is that there is while comfortability is not an element of a cell on your spreadsheet or your programming. It's not, comfortability is not necessarily a box when I'm searching for homes for our clients, but comfortability is a decision they're making, right?
Oh, yeah.
So not only is like checks and balances there by regulatory stances, which is great, right? So that even in the worst case scenario, like, hey, by the ratios, by the percentages, by the data, this is affordable to you, right? But you then get to have that added layer of comfortability. Yeah. And just because you can get pre-approved up to 1.2, I'm not saying let's go look at 1.2. That's awesome. That's great news. But guess what? You're driving. Yeah. You're driving. I'm helping to tell you the process. I'm helping to tell you where to go and everything to take into consideration. But you're making those decisions. Oh, yeah. You're at the wheel. And in that comfortability level, it's very subjective, but they're in control.
Oh, yeah. And, we can redefine that comfortability with security, with knowledge, with just trust at the end of the day. Because it's one of those things where you entrusted us to make sure that this transaction was effective, efficient, and timely. Mm-hmm. And those are great things, but we want to do this again. We don't want you to just own one property and be very happy with it. We want you to own several properties every time you PCS, every time you're looking to invest, every time. The one thing that you can trust is, hey, real estate is one of those things where people make money on because it doesn't lose its value, rarely ever. 2008 being the only exception. And then here in Hawaii, it was a very, very quick dip. Very quick dip.
Yeah.
Just because
we are where we are today.
Yeah.
Which is double plus.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just absolutely nuts knowing that, us as leaders, we still get to inculcate knowledge to service members, to active duty serving, and to veterans transitioning out. My favorite quick caveat story is I had a soldier who was a signaleer, did radios and stuff like that, and was deployed once, came back, wasn't injured or anything like that, but he needed to know the benefits that were afforded to him. He knew that he could buy a home with the VA home loan. He got out in early October and then talked to me about the VA home loan, and I educated him on that, but I didn't stop there. I was like, hey, so you literally just got out. That's awesome. Congratulations. Have you looked into your VA benefits? Have you looked into, your disability? Just so, hey, this is an added disability. It's like, hey, you've served for 8 years, you deployed once, there are things that you've underwent that most people have never experienced. And I want you to know that, if things become worse or things that become systemic later on in your life, I want you to know that people are there to take care of you. Yeah. The Department of Veterans Affairs is there to take care of you and help you for the service that you provided. So let's identify it now. Oh, and by the way, if you have a disability rating of 10% or more, which could be like tinnitus. Right. How many times have you been in the range and forgot to wear your earplugs? Yeah. Forgot. More times than I like to admit. But it's hey, you can get a disability rating, and then you will have your funding fee completely waived. Yep. A funding fee is a huge amount of money that can be financed into the loan,
Right.
still making the loan zero down payment. But that's neat, not having to pay tens of thousands of dollars in the life of a loan.
Mm-hmm.
Or in this guy's case, it got refunded back to him
Oh,
because
very nice.
he
Very nice.
set up his VA appointment October 15th. We closed on November 1st. And I made sure that he knew. I was like, hey, once you get your rating back, you're going to get your funding fee totally refunded back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I told him it was about a $400,000 property. I was like, $6,000 is going to go back into your bank account. He goes, okay. I was like, and like, he was,
Sure.
I was like, okay. I was like, just let me know when it does.
Yeah.
He called me really at like the day or two after Christmas. It's like, I just got my VA disability rating, and I got a check in the mail the next day. I was like, no, you didn't. I was like, that's awesome, man. He goes,
That's legit, man.
yep. And it's a little more than what you said. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Mo better.
More better for me. More better for you, man. So, Merry Christmas. I guess. Yeah. So that was a pretty cool story.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, I mean, and those again, going back to, looking ahead, for our transitioning veterans. I mean, I think, oh man, it like I said, it breaks my heart that anybody. I can understand the mental health struggle. I can understand that fully, and that's a topic for another day. But the not being able to take advantage of your benefits, it's truly unacceptable.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm here to say just blatantly, when it comes to, well, let's start with my expertise. Right. When it comes to VA real estate, it's right here. We wore the uniform. And now we understand the profession. Not only understand the profession, we live the profession, both in personal execution, using the VA home loan. I've used it twice here on the island. But with countless service members at this point, too. But I'll even take it a step forward that, I've spent the last 5 years educating myself on the disability system, right? And all the misconceptions, the wrong perceptions, the how you're actually supposed to do it. I've spent 5 years educating myself on how it's actually done, because I'm the person who did it wrong. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't lean on anybody who had recently gone through the process, any transitioning person, and I thought I had it myself. Well, because I know everything, right? No, dumb me. Like, go, lo and behold. And it was so funny, like, mental health, right? So we've both been downrange, seen a thing or two. And those things tug at us. Let's get real. Those things, those memories are hard to shake. And I went to like one of my first like evaluations, right? And I'm just like, we're here for mental health, right? And I'm just like, okay, well, what do you want to know, man? I got the stories. What I mean? I came in there with 5, 7 like incidents, right, that I can very graphically describe, right? And kind of painful at the moment actually to relive it. I do recall that very distinctly. But then we got to the point of like, well, hey, how's everything going now? How does it affect you? And me being the stubborn, I don't know, arrogant, ignorant, hardhead that I am, I'm just like, oh, I'm good. I definitely don't drink too much. I definitely don't have a sleeping problem. I definitely don't have random flashbacks in public spaces. I definitely, don't, get overly angry at, simplistic things that I shouldn't. I have none of those problems. I don't forget where I'm driving. I don't, and I just shot myself in the foot because I legitimately said, oh, I'm good, right? If I'm good, why the hell was I there? So.
I appreciate you saying that, Dan. And by no means, like, it's not, I thank you for your humility. That means a lot, because as leaders, we have ingrained our culture with, I'm the toughest son of a bitch in the formation. People are going to follow me because there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a piece of steel. And that, you have no idea what's happening in between for 2 years, and it's insane because we just keep creating this culture of you have to be tough, you have to lead by example, you can't show any weakness, but showing weakness is a huge strength.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing thing because I never really understood what humility was until I became a father. I kind of had it conceptualized when I became a husband, but not really, because I still had to be a provider. Right. And then knowing that there's a vulnerability out there, and that if you're going 100 miles an hour, if you do that with a car, something's gonna break. And if you can't slow down just a little bit and enjoy the air a little bit, or let the pressure off the accelerator, it's gonna break down real quick. And it became so obvious when I was transitioning. Because we're going so hard all the time, we don't have time to take care of ourselves. But being that kind of Monday morning quarterback, looking back on it and trying to tell everyone out there, hey, take care of yourself. It's not a shameful way to live. It is completely a show of strength, because once you understand that you're allowed to be this way, everything is going to come into light very quickly. If you look at a military service, whether it's the full 20 years or like us, or anywhere between 8 to 14 years of service, or if it's just your 3-year commitment, that's just a blip on the entirety that is your life.
Right.
Don't let that little blip be the reason why your life is in shambles or you haven't received the benefits that you deserve. And it's a real crazy thing to let a small amount of pride overwhelm your whole entire life.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, you being vulnerable, being transparent, I mean, that is massively important, but it's not necessary to be outward facing either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, if somebody's going to come to me vulnerable and transparent, I'm going to give them the exact same thing. I'm going to reciprocate, and I'm going to be there for them. And I love being in those situations. That's where I thrive. But it doesn't even have to be like that, because I can understand that that's intimidating, right? I mean, we spent 8+ years, 10 years of just being hard, and we don't talk about feelings, we don't talk about thoughts, we don't talk about what's going on between the ears. No, we just do. Execute. So I can understand how easily intimidating it is to not want to approach anybody, right? Even though we're saying, been there, worn the uniform, same team, different jersey. Even though we're saying that we've lived it, still can understand why it's intimidating. But you can also have that layer of vulnerability and transparency to oneself. So you're over here talking about being a father and your son. I mean, just imagine a world or a day and age where you, who's progressing through life, you are just journaling to yourself, at the end of the day, you're like, damn, today was one of those days, right? You got in my face, young man, and raised your voice to me for the first time, and this is, I can't tell you what I felt like today, but I want you to know, and I want myself to know that, hey, I just took it for what it was. It was an incident, something occurred, but I was able to, ground myself, humble myself, remove the emotion, and, what's your son's name? Weston, if you get the opportunity to read this day, just know that on this day, January 6th, 2023, he's a little young, but, this happened. I still love you, and I hope you carry this love through your entire life, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You know what I mean? It's just you owe that to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just so massively important. You owe that honesty and that transparency to oneself, right? And then if you do that to yourself, especially physically, writing it down or putting it in, online, or, just writing notes or something like that, imagine what that is going to mean for Weston when he's your age.
And I think a really good way to wrap this up too is thank you for that beautiful sentiment too, Dan. And it's like a great way to look back is that, hey, we carried all this weight. You don't have to continue carrying weight after your service or after your job or after whatever. You don't always have to carry that weight. There are always going to be people that are going to help you take it off. There are always going to be people out there that will listen to help you relieve a lot of that burden.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, because I've already reached out to you before, but if it's not about buying a home, if it's not about receiving your benefits, if it's not about anything like that can benefit you that way, you just need someone to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can talk to my friend Dan. Dan knows he can speak to me. We don't have to. There doesn't have to be a level of professionalism here.
No.
It's just us speaking,
Yeah.
telling us what's wrong, unloading that burden for a moment, whether we just be for a moment. But that moment of relief is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to your ways of carrying that load and keep driving on, that may be just the amount of rest you needed to make it to the next
Yep.
talk with your buddy. And we're all battle buddies. We're all going to be there. And yeah, I think that's a really great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But Dan, I appreciate the time that you came in here to speak with me and speak with our audience about just really looking out as far as you can and a true forward thinking, and then having that ability to find the right resources and tools to backwards plan, and then you set the conditions for being successful and just taking advantage of all the sacrifices that you've made and that we've made so that we can become successful later on in life.
100%.
But thanks again, guys. This is part 2, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty more.
Yeah. Excited for the next one.